The year is 1943. In the depths of the Belarusian forest, where the snow lay thickly, hiding the roots of trees and traces of animals, Anna clung to the damp earth of the dugout. She was 23, but the war had made her older. Her skin was rough from the cold, her eyes were sunken from hunger. Next to her, in a cramped space illuminated only by the faint light from a small campfire, sat 5 Germans. They were soldiers of the Wehrmacht, but now they are just people cornered by fate. Ehorm was torn, her face was covered with soot and dirt, and her eyes showed the same fatigue as hers. The dugout was old, dug back in the First World War, with a low ceiling made of logs covered with moss. Anna stumbled upon her by chance, wandering through the forest after her village burned down in the flames of the retreating troops. The Germans showed up later, wounded who had deserted their unit when the Red Army launched its offensive. They didn't kill her immediately, as she expected. Instead, one of them, a tall man with graying temples whose name was Hans, simply nodded and pointed to a place by the fire. "Sitz dich," he said softly, and Anna understood what it meant by "sit down." The first day passed in silent tension. Anna sat in the corner, wrapped in a torn shawl, and watched them. Hans was the eldest. He was about 40, with a deep wound on his shoulder, which he bandaged with a homemade bandage. Next to him is Eric, a young guy with trembling hands, no older than 19, with a face not yet hardened by life. He coughed every now and then, pressing his fist to his mouth. Walter, stocky and silent, with a thick beard, was busy with the fire, throwing branches. Kurt, with sharp eyes and a scar on his cheek, cleaned his pistol without taking his eyes off Anna. The last one, Otto, was the weakest. His leg was shot through and he lay gritting his teeth in pain. They shared their meager supplies, some breadcrumbs, canned food from their backpacks, and water from the snow which was heated over a fire. Anna didn't speak German and they didn't speak Russian, but gestures and glances replaced words. When the hunger became unbearable, Hans divided the last piece of bread into 6 equal parts. Anna took her share with a trembling hand, feeling a lump rise in her throat. She didn't trust them, but she had no choice. A blizzard was raging outside, and the forest was teeming with patrols. On the second day, Otto got worse. His wound festered, and heat engulfed his body. Anna saw him writhing in a corner, muttering something in his native language. She knew herbs. Her grandmother had taught her in the village how to make decoctions for fever. Steeling herself, she pointed to the exit and gestured that she would go for help. Hans nodded, and Kurt, gun at the ready, went with her. They trudged through the snow, Anna leading the way, looking for willow bark and dried leaves. Kurt was silent, but his eyes followed her every move. When she returned, she brewed a decoction in a tin cup. Otto drank, wincing at the bitterness, and after an hour the fever subsided a little. It was the first bridge between them. Eric, seeing the improvement, nodded to Anna gratefully. Walter shared his blanket, draping it over the girl's shoulders as she shivered from the cold. The dugout became their world, cramped, stuffy, but protected from external chaos. At night they heard distant explosions, the echo of artillery that was approaching. Anna lay awake, remembering her family, her mother who died in the bombing, her father who went to the front. These Germans were the enemy, but in this pit, they were just survivors. On the third day, the supplies ran out. Hans, overcoming the pain in his shoulder, proposed a plan. He drew a map on the ground, a forest, a river nearby, an abandoned farm on the edge. They decided to take a chance and go there for food. Anna knew the area better than they did, having grown up in the local forests. She pointed to a path hidden under the snow where patrols were less frequent. The group left at dawn, moving in a chain, Anna in front with Walter, followed by Hans and Eric carrying Otto on an improvised stretcher made of branches and a tent-like cloak. Kurt brought up the rear, looking back. The snow creaked underfoot, and the wind whipped at their faces. They walked in silence, saving their strength. Suddenly, there was a crash. A wolf or a patrol? Kurt raised his gun, but Anna stopped him with a gesture, pointing to the deer tracks. They continued, hearts pounding. The farm appeared an hour later, a dilapidated house with a sunken roof. Inside, they found bags of potatoes, moldy but edible, and several cans of canned food hidden in the cellar. The joy was short-lived. Voices were heard outside, Soviet soldiers searching the neighborhood. They hid in the cellar, huddled together. Anna could feel the warmth of Eric's body next to hers, his breath on her cheek. The voices were getting closer. The footsteps were thundering overhead. One of the soldiers came down, lighting the corners with a flashlight. Anna squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the end. But the soldier did not notice them. The shadows hid the group. When the patrol left, they exhaled. The journey back was harder. Otto was moaning in pain, and the snow was getting heavier. Back in the dugout, they lit a fire and ate their first real meal in days. It strengthened their bond. Anna began to teach them simple words: food, water, dangerous. Hans answered in broken Russian, which he knew from the prisoners. They shared stories without words. Hans showed photos of his wife and children from his pocket. Anna drew a house of her village on the ground. The war made them equal in suffering. On the fourth day, trouble came. Eric went out to get firewood and did not return. They waited for an hour, then Hans and Kurt went looking. Anna stayed with Walter and Otto. Her heart sank with anxiety. 2 hours later, they returned, carrying Eric in their arms. He fell into a snowdrift and broke his leg. The pain was terrible, but Anna helped again by making a splint out of branches. Eric lay pale but alive. The forest became their prison and refuge. They hunted small game. Walter set snares, catching hares. Anna taught them to cover their tracks to avoid patrols. One night, they heard planes. Bombing nearby lit up the sky. The dugout was shaking, and earth was falling from the ceiling. They huddled together, waiting for the blow. By the 5th day, Otto had recovered enough to sit up. He drew a map of Germany on the ground, showing his house. Anna nodded, understanding the longing. They became a reluctant family, sharing warmth, food, and fear. When Kurt got a cough, Anna made him tea from pine needles. He looked at her suspiciously at first, but then accepted. The 6th day brought hope. Reconstruction. Hans and Anna came to the edge of the forest. They saw smoke from the campfires. The Red Army was advancing. The Germans knew that it would be the end for them if they were found. Anna felt conflicted. These people had saved her, but they were the enemies of her people. They returned, and Hans gathered everyone. He drew an escape plan, to the west, across the river. But the river was frozen and dangerous. Anna shook her head. It's better to wait. The tension grew. The 7th day, the patrol came close. They put out the fire, lay low. Footsteps overhead. Voices. Anna prayed to herself. The patrol left, but left traces. The 8th day, hunger returned. They ate the last of their supplies. Anna suggested going to the river to get some fish. Walter and Kurt went with her. They cut through the ice and caught some fish. Shots were fired on the way back. They hid behind the trees. The patrol fired into the air, but did not notice them. When they returned, they cooked the fish. It was a celebration in their world. Otto smiled for the first time. The 9th day, the snowfall intensified. They reinforced the dugout by piling snow outside for camouflage. Anna was treating Hans's wounds, and the infection was receding. On the 10th day, Eric got back on his feet. They celebrated quietly. So the days passed in the forest, where survival wove the fate of enemies into one thread. Anna learned to see them as people, and they saw her as an ally. The war was raging outside, but a fragile peace reigned inside the dugout. The 11th day began with anxiety. Hans, having woken up first, went outside and returned with a tense face. There were fresh boot tracks around the dugout. Not bestial, not random. The Soviet patrol circled within a kilometer radius. Anna, who had not yet managed to banish sleep, immediately realized that she could not stay. They packed their things in a matter of minutes. Satchels, weapons, leftover canned food, blankets. Otto was already able to hobble himself, leaning on a makeshift crutch made from a thick branch. Eric, whose leg was still aching, gritted his teeth and walked without complaint. The journey north took all day. Anna led, choosing trails where the snow was deeper, but the tracks were lost in swampy hollows. The wind beat in his face, clogging his breath with snow dust. In the evening, they came across a cave in the hillside, a narrow entrance hidden by a rubble of fallen pines. It was colder inside than in the dugout, but more spacious. It was possible to make a fire without fear that the smoke would give them away immediately. Walter found some edible mushrooms under the snow, pale but safe, as Anna showed by carefully cutting the cap with a knife. She brewed pine needles in a pot, a bitter but warming drink. The 12th day was spent in silent recovery. Otto, sitting by the fire, drew the outline of his farm in Bavaria on the damp earth. A house, a cowshed, an apple orchard. Anna, without looking up, drew her village nearby. A church, a well, a street where she used to run barefoot. They didn't speak, but they understood each other. In the evening, Hans took out a crumpled letter from his wife, the last one from his wife. He wasn't reading, just holding it in his hands, staring into the fire. The 13th day brought good luck. Walter and Hans returned with 2 skinny hares. Anna gutted them with Kurt's knife, boiled them in a pot with roots and mushrooms. The soup was thin, but hot, the first in weeks. Eric, finishing his portion, smiled out of the corner of his mouth for the first time in a long time. On the 14th day, Eric fell ill again. The cough became wet, the temperature rose. Anna gathered willow bark and dried mother and stepmother leaves and brewed them in a mug. He drank, wincing, but trusted her now unconditionally. By nightfall, the fever had subsided. The 15th day is dog barking. They extinguished the fire and pressed themselves against the cold walls of the cave. The barking got closer, then subsided as the wind blew away the smell of smoke. When everything calmed down, Walter exhaled, as if he had been holding air in his lungs for an hour. On the 16th day, Hans laid out the stolen map on the stone. He traced the front line with his finger, then the intended route to the west. Anna shook her head, too openly. It is better to wait for spring, when the snow melts and the swamps become impassable for patrols. Kurt frowned, but said nothing. The 17th day is a thaw. The snow began to settle, exposing moss and the first thawed patches. Anna found frozen cranberries, sour but full of vitamins. They ate them by handfuls, washed down with melted water. On the 18th day, Kurt cut his hand by catching on a branch. The wound was deep. Anna washed it with snow and applied a bandage from her shawl. He nodded, briefly but gratefully. The 19th day is a clear night. Stars could be seen through a crack in the cave ceiling. Otto softly hummed a Bavarian lullaby, his voice trembling from the cold. Anna remembered her mother singing, and her eyes stung.
The 20th day is moving again. Patrols intensified, and smoke from campfires could be seen on the horizon. They moved to the river, walking at night, hiding in ravines during the day. By the morning of the 22nd day, they found a hunting hut, sagging, but with a stove and straw on the floor. For the first time in months, Anna slept without snuggling up to someone for warmth. The 23rd day is the repair. Walter patched the roof with moss and branches. Hans reinforced the door. Anna was collecting firewood, piling it at the entrance with a neat woodpile. The 24th day is the cellar under the floor. It contains a bag of potatoes, covered with mold but solid inside. They baked it in ashes. The peel cracked. Steam rose to the ceiling. 25th day, Eric got up without help. He helped Walter by carrying branches, and his face turned pink. The 26th day is the bombing. The planes flew low, and the ground shook. The hut resisted, but the roof sagged. The next morning they found debris in the crater, cans, a piece of tarpaulin. The 27th day, Hans taught how to recognize time by the sun and the location of stars. He drew this in the snow for Eric, and Anna noticed that his hands didn't tremble anymore. The 28th day, Anna showed how to make nets out of bark. They went down to the river, cut through the ice, and caught 3 groupers. In the evening, they were grilled on coals.
On the 29th day, Kurt took out a photo from his satchel. A destroyed house in Berlin, his wife and daughter against the ruins. He wasn't crying, but his fingers were shaking. On the 30th day, Hans gathered everyone at the stove. I drew a plan on the blackboard. Cross the river at night. Reach the German positions. Anna nodded. She would bring it to the shore. She would not go any further. The 31st day is preparation. We cleaned our weapons and dried our clothes. Anna wove a rope out of bast for crossing. The 32nd day is transition. The river was wide, and the ice was cracking. Otto slipped, but Walter caught him by the collar. On the other shore there is a dense forest. Silence. The 33rd day is the bunker. It was abandoned, with rusty bunks and crates. Inside there are medicines, biscuits, even a bottle of schnapps. Anna treated the old wounds. Hans opened a bottle, but did not drink it. He left it in case of emergency. The 34th day is exploration. Eric and Kurt left at dawn and returned in the evening. The German trenches were 10 kilometers away, but there were minefields between them. The 35th day is the decision. The Germans will go west, Anna will go east. She took Hans' compass, Eric's scarf, and Walter's knife. The hug was short but firm. The 36th day is parting by the river. Anna went along her shore, they went their own way. She didn't look back. But on the 37th day, I heard gunshots. She's back. I found them in a ravine. Hans was wounded in the leg, Kurt in the arm. An ambush. She pulled them out into a dense thicket, bandaged them, and gave them a decoction to drink. The 38th day is recovery. Decoction of willow bark, moss on wounds. 39th day, moving south. The forest has become thicker. The patrols are less frequent. 40th day, a ruined village. There are pickles and sauerkraut in the cellars. They ate straight from cans, washed down with melted water. 41st day, Soviet patrol. They hid in the basement.
pressed against the cold ground. The soldiers left without noticing. 42nd day, Eric found an old radio. The battery ran out, but Walter fixed it by connecting it to the dynamo he found. News: the Red Army is advancing. The Allies have landed in Normandy. The 43rd day is spring. The snow was melting, the streams were noisy. Anna found the first snowdrops, put them on a stone, for everyone. 44th day, hunting. The hare is trapped. Walter skinned it. Anna cooked it with herbs. 45th day is warm. They slept without blankets, for the first time in months. So the days passed, from hiding to hiding, from hunger to meager food, from fear to cautious hope. Anna no longer thought of them as enemies. They didn't think of her as Russian. They were just surviving, together.
The 46th day started with rain. Warm, spring-like, it washed away the remnants of snow, turning the trails into mud. The hut where they stayed for the night was leaking in 3 places. Walter plugged the holes with moss, but the water dripped onto the straw anyway. Anna wrung out her shawl and hung it by the stove. Hans, whose leg was still aching, sat at the entrance, watching the drops trickle down the butt of the rifle. Eric slept pressed against the wall for the first time in months without coughing. 47th day, moving. They moved higher towards the hills where the water flowed faster. They found an old guerrilla dugout, log walls, an iron stove, even a rusty mug on a nail. Anna lit a fire and made soup from the found cereals and wild sorrel. Kurt, his arm in a bandage, was silently peeling potatoes, slowly but carefully. 48th day, exploration. Hans and Otto left at dawn, returned for dinner. Smoke from campfires in the valley below. Soviet units. The Germans exchanged glances. Anna drew an arrow on the ground to the west, another 20 kilometers to the line where, according to rumors, they were stationed. But in between there are swamps, mines and patrols. The 49th day is preparation. They wove ropes of bast, dried breadcrumbs on the stove. Anna wove a bag out of bark, put herbs, bandages and a compass in it. In the evening, Hans took out the last photo of his wife and 2 sons. He ran his finger over their faces, then put it in his pocket. The 50th day is the way. We walked at night, hiding in ravines during the day. The rain had stopped, but the ground squelched underfoot. Otto walked without a crutch, and Eric walked without a limp. Walter carried satchels, Kurt carried a rifle, Anna guided by the moss on the trees and the stars. The 51st day is a swamp. The quagmire slurped, the rope stretched taut. Eric fell through up to his waist, but Hans and Walter pulled him out. Wet and shivering, they reached the island of land, built a small fire from dry branches. Anna wrung out her clothes and hung them by the fire. The 52nd day is hunger. I'm out of breadcrumbs. Anna found burdock roots, boiled them with salt from the package she found. Bitter, but satisfying. On the 53rd day, Kurt fell ill. Fever, cough. Anna brewed lime trees and raspberries found in an abandoned garden. He drank without resisting. The 54th day is improvement. Kurt stood up, his face pale but his eyes clear. The 55th day is aviation. The planes flew low. The bombs fell 2 kilometers away. The ground shook and the air smelled of burning. They hid in a hole covered with branches.
The 56th day is after the bombing. There is debris in the crater, cans, a piece of tarpaulin, even a pack of cigarettes. Walter found the cartridges. Hans found the water bottle.
57th day. Hans recovered completely. My leg didn't hurt. He walked 5 kilometers without stopping, checked the trail. The 58th day is the decision, the last dash to the west. Anna will take you to the river, but not further. She could already see gratitude in Hans's eyes, longing in Eric's. The 59th day is hunting. The hare is trapped. Walter skinned it. Anna cooked it with herbs. We ate in silence, but well. The 60th day is the river. It's wide and muddy from the spring flood. The ice is gone. The current is fast. They wove a raft of logs and ropes. They were launched at night. Anna was standing on the shore, holding the end of the rope. The raft pushed off, and the current caught it. Hans waved his hand, and Eric shouted something unintelligible. The raft disappeared around a bend. Anna was left alone. She went east with a compass in her pocket and Eric's scarf around her neck. 61st day, forest. She walked without looking back. I found some berries and drank from the stream. I spent the night under a fir tree covered with a raincoat tent. 62nd day, village. Ruined, but with a well. The water is clean. She got drunk and washed her face. I found a jar of honey in the cellar and ate it with a spoon. The 63rd day is the road. Unpaved, broken by tanks. She was walking along the side of the road, hiding in the bushes at the sound of engines. 64th day, partisans. Meeting in the forest. They searched and interrogated him. They saw a compass, a scarf. She told them everything. No names, no details. She was released with a piece of bread and a piece of bacon. 65th day, refugee camp. Tents, smoke, the smell of porridge. They fed her and gave her a blanket. It was her first time sleeping on a cot. The war ended a month later. Anna returned to her village, where the foundations and chimneys remained. She built a house in the old place, planted apple trees. Years later, in 1958, a letter arrived. From Germany. Hans wrote, he returned home, his wife is alive, his sons have grown up. Eric died in the last days near Berlin. Walter lives in Munich, Otto lives in Bavaria, Kurt lives in Hamburg. Everyone remembers. Everyone thanks me. Anna replied. I attached a photo of apple trees in bloom. They never met again, but every year, on the day when the river overflowed, Anna put 6 mugs on the table, 5 with herbal tea, 1 empty, for those who survived with her in the forest, where the enemies became people.